Good morning. Welcome. Good to see you this morning. Well, today we begin to look at the relationship of David with Bathsheba, the wife of Uriah the Hittite. And we will linger here for a while, I think, because it is such an important story of David, and it has so much to teach us. So much to teach us. So please do read 2 Samuel 11 and 12 up until verse 25. Read it each day. Let this story really speak to you. So we come to the spring of the year, this particular year, and it says at the beginning, the time when kings go forth to battle. David sent Joab and his servants with him and all Israel, and they ravaged the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah. But David remained at Jerusalem. The first thing about the story of David and Bathsheba is that David was not where he should have been. David was king. David was a warrior. David was a leader of men, and he had become wealthy. He had become staid. He was older. Yes, he was older. And you know, there's something in our head, in the culture we live in the way we've been taught and brought up, that says when we reach a certain age, we can stop doing things, because we haven't got the strength to do them, or it's very easy to give up doing things on the basis of age. Let the younger people do it. It's their turn. We did it then, and it's their turn. But I have searched the scriptures. There is one place where retirement is mentioned, and that's to do with the soldiers in the army. When they reached a certain age, they no longer served as a soldier. But in every other aspect, the Bible does not teach retirement. It's sad to say, isn't it? But Moses didn't start his greatest life work until he was 80. Caleb was 83 or 85, something like that. Many of the greats, Abraham didn't have his child until he was 90 or 100, something like that. Joshua wasn't a young man when he came into the promised land and led them taking the promised land. He was a bit younger than Caleb, I think, probably about maybe 70. Maybe 70, I don't know, maybe 60. We should not look on age as a disqualifier. Neither should we look at young people, very young people, even children, and say that they're too young to be able to speak for the Lord or to be able to hear the Lord clearly. It's not true. David, the important thing is to know what God's job for you at the moment is. Not to assume that because you've got to a certain age and maturity, certain things are no longer your task to do. David should have been leading his people in battle, but he wasn't. He was at home in Jerusalem. And verse 2 says, it happened late one afternoon when David rose from his couch and was walking upon the roof of the king's house. He rose from his couch late one afternoon. He was lazing about. He was bored. All his men, all the people he had lived with and toured around the country with and worked with and fought with and supported, they were all away. He was on his own. He was on the roof. And he saw from the roof a woman bathing. Now, this brings us to a very important verse in James. James chapter 1, verse 14. But each person is tempted when he's lured and enticed by his own desire. Then desire, when it is conceived, gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is full grown, brings forth death. That's James 1, 14 and 15. The old versions put lust there, but the word lust, in its original meaning, is desire for anything that isn't yours. When you want something that you shouldn't have. Sin starts in your mind. You can't commit a sin if you haven't thought about it first. And it's in our mind we have to control those wandering thoughts. When you read the story of David and Bathsheba, there were many points in the story when David could have stopped what he was doing. He could have thought better of it. He had this was no spur-of-the-moment action. It started with seeing. Started with what came in through the entrance gate of his eyes. He saw something, he saw someone, and he wanted her. That's where it started. And that thought could have been nipped in the bud when it first arrived. And it is Jesus who points out so clearly in the Sermon on the Mount that our thoughts is where it starts. And we have to control our thoughts. If you haven't thought about something that is not yours to have, you're not going to end up stealing it or taking it by force. If your thoughts are filled with contentment with what you have and love and devotion to the person you are married to, you're not going to be going after somebody else. But if your thoughts have changed from that and you're thinking about how it would be nicer if you were married to someone else, or how isn't so-and-so's husband lovely or wife lovely, you be careful. It starts with a small thought that grows and grows and grows. Someone very famous, but I don't really know who, lots of people say who it was, but someone very famous said, "You can't stop birds flying over your head, but you can stop them making a nest in your hair." Thoughts that cross our minds are sent by the tempter to try and get us to want something we're not entitled to want something better, something more, something different, something nicer, something novel, something interesting. After all, if you've been in the same situation for a long time, it does get boring if you're not careful. It all depends on how you think about what you've got and where you are and who you are. With David, it started with a sight and a thought that he did not stop. He indulged the thought. And we'll see the steps he went down to disaster. We have to control our thought life. That's where it all starts. As a man thinketh, so he is what it says in Proverbs. And it's absolutely right. It's what you think, not how you act or what you look like you're thinking, but what you're actually thinking that is so very, very, very important. We need to bring every thought captive to the cross of Christ. Don't indulge the thoughts that we know are wrong. Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.